I'm Alexis Wiley, Mayor Duggan's Chief of Staff, and today we're talking about something that is going to be very good news for a lot of Detroit homeowners. Now, I'd like to introduce Mayor Mike Duggan.
All right, some of you were here with us a year ago, and we have what I consider, again, good news. As I said when I was campaigning, I felt like the assessments in this city were higher than the actual sales price that people could sell their house for. We made a commitment to have honest assessments. Last year, you remember, most Detroiters got assessment cuts between 10 and 20%. And we have embarked on a parcel-by-parcel assessment, the first one in 50 years, and that's going to be done at the end of 2016. We are assessing each individual home. We didn't want to wait for that parcel-by-parcel assessment to be done to continue to try to do the best we can to make sure our assessments are accurate. And so we are again doing significant assessment cuts for 2015. With me are Gary Ivanko, our Chief Assessor, Alvin Horn, the Assessor, and John Naglick, the Finance Director. They've done outstanding work, and here's what we're going to show you. This year, a little over half of all Detroiters will see a 10% cut in their assessments. And so if you look at the map that's on the board here, and you can see it, everything in yellow, those neighborhoods are looking at 10% reductions. It's a little over half of the city. About 24% are going to see 20% reductions. And those are the big numbers 2 and 6 that are kind of the reddish pink. We'll see that. And the green areas will see 5% reductions. The exception to that is going to be that we have individual neighborhoods that are assessed separately in something called an NEZ. And if anybody wants to talk about NEZs, Gary will talk to them longer than you want to listen. But the really interesting thing is 25 of these neighborhoods, the property values have hit bottom and are actually starting to come up a little bit. And so in 25 neighborhoods in the city, there's no assessment cut. And they're the neighborhoods that you would hope would be showing this kind of growth. So it's Palmer Woods, it's Indian Village, it's Woodbridge. I'm really pleased that it's in areas that we spend a lot of time in, like Bagley and East English Village and Boston Edison. And so we have passed out to you a list of 25 neighborhoods that will see no assessment cut. And I said to people a year ago, if you'll hang in with us for 6 months, it'll start to pay off. We're seeing many of the neighborhoods starting to come back. And I hope next year I'm here and I'm showing you it's not 25 neighborhoods, it's 75 neighborhoods. But this year, those first 25 are there. And so what we've passed out to you is a list of them. And we've also passed out this document here. Some of you may be sharing it. But these are the boundaries of the 25 neighborhoods. So the boundaries in green, you can see Boston Edison, you can see Sherwood Forest, Palmer Woods. The boundaries in green, those are the neighborhoods that will see no cut. And so we're trying to make sure we explain the expectations to the public as best we can. If you're in one of those 25 neighborhoods, you're going to get an assessment notice that says there's no change. Everybody else in the city is going to see 5, 10, 20%. Most will see 10%. This Friday or Saturday, you are going to get this notice in the mail. It's a notice of assessment change. It's not your bill, but it has a really key line on it, because right here, there's a line that says, this is the change in your bill from last year to this year. And so there's going to be a circle around it, right? Are we circling it on the flyer? We're not. So you're just going to have to look at the number. But we're going to send you that so you'll see what your new assessment is. This isn't your bill. You'll get your bill in June. You'll pay your bill in August. But when you get that assessment notice, please open it up, look at it, and you will see what the change in your tax bill is from last year. Probably the thing that I'm most pleased about are the results. A year ago when we did this cut, we downsized our property tax revenue estimates for 2015, and we reduced them from 120 to $100 million. But we said, we believe if you assess people honestly, people will pay their bills. Our property tax revenues are coming in well above projections. We're budgeted this year at $100 million. They're coming in at least at $115 million. It's just what you would hope to happen. When we assess people honestly, a lot more people started paying their taxes, which is going to mean a significant reduction in foreclosures in that cycle that we have been at over and over. And so with this assessment cut, we're still going to be well above the 2016 budget. And if we have the same effect in 2016, we could be significantly ahead. So this is not something where the property tax assessment cut is negatively impacting the budget. We're really pleased it's had just the opposite effect. And as many of you know, we got legislation through in Lansing with the cooperation of the Treasurers Association for the back foreclosures. We have a lot of foreclosures in the pipeline, and the Treasurer very shortly will be announcing the details of his plans to allow people to pay those arrearages over time, pay 6% interest, the pieces that we got passed last month in Lansing. And so we're going to be working with the Treasurer on the outreach to head off the foreclosures for the people who are in the pipeline. But the really good news is, based on this year's tax payment and based on this cut, we think we are going to significantly reduce the number of people who can't pay their property tax bills going forward. So again, we found that just running efficient, honest government actually pays off. And on the City Council, there has been no stronger voice saying we've got to get these assessments right. We can't be forcing people out of their homes for these high property taxes than Mary Sheffield. And she's been a big champion of this. And at this point, I'd like to invite up my partner, Councilwoman Sheffield.
Good afternoon. I just want to say to the residents of Detroit, today is a great day, not only for the residents of the city, but for my particular district. I'm excited to see so many neighborhoods included in this reassessment of property taxes. Not only is it a fair thing to do, it's the right thing to do, as the mayor mentioned. I want to commend his leadership for continuing to tackle the quality of life issues in our neighborhoods and his commitment to retaining neighborhoods, residents in neighborhoods in the city of Detroit. I constantly interact on a day-to-day basis with residents in the city of Detroit who constantly tell me the need of reassessing property taxes. For far too long, residents of this city have been overassessed, and it's time that we address the issue. If we're going to attract people, we need to also focus on retaining residents that have been here long term. And I'm great that the administration has taken this leadership, and I'm standing with him, and I'm looking forward to relaying that message back to the residents in District 5 of this exciting news of a reduction in property taxes. Thank you.
And so that's the lay summary. Anybody who wants to ask questions about the methodology by which the assessments are calculated, Gary Ivanko and Alvin Horn are here. With that, we'll take questions. Yes?
Just to be clear then, you're saying that you don't think this is going to cost the city any money? And number two, give a dollar amount on how much it's going to save the average?
You know, it's going to vary widely. And so it just depends on what your house is worth and which range you fall into. That $146 number, please don't use that as an average. But last year, my friend Benny Napoleon told me he got a several $100 reduction. I don't know that it would have changed his vote in the election. Other people saw reductions of $25 and $50. So it's going to be a range. And I would say to people, wait and look at your bill rather than have me tell you what the average is and then have you get the bill and say it wasn't the right amount. But people know what they're paying, so you can figure 5, 10, 20%.
Mayor, talk about, it sounds like you're trying to get the city to equilibrium as it comes to assessment and taxation.
Right.
When do you get to a normal equilibrium where you don't have to keep sort of pressing levers to try and, push this in a better direction?
I think we're a long way there with this change. So when I saw 25 neighborhoods that had no reduction. In fact, in some of them we probably could have raised the assessment. We didn't think that was appropriate yet. 25 neighborhoods stable or going up in value is a great start. We're going to stand here in 12 months. And if it's not 50 or 75 neighborhoods, I'm going to be really disappointed. But I think with this change, we are very close to fair assessments across the city. And I really do think we're going to be growing from here.
Is it a situation where the city is still trying to play catch up with running like any other city would in terms of assessment, taxation, and so forth.
Well, we're trying to play catch up in the way we run computers around here, the way we hire people around here. There's nothing about the assessment that's any different, except that Alvin Horn and Gary Evanko have done an outstanding job. And so I'd like to ask one of them to talk what they're doing, because it's amazing. They have got a team at computers looking at every single home in this city and appraising it house by house. But it's not fair to do some and not the other. So it's going to take them till the end of next year to finish that. And in the meantime, they're taking the data they've obtained and going by region to do kind of an average fair shot. But I don't know if Gary or Alvin, you want to talk about where we are in what Rod calls the catch-up process.
In terms of the catch-up process, I mean, the ultimate goal is the complete reappraisal of the city of Detroit. And that is in process right now. The city has contracted with a company called Tyler Technologies that's doing most of this legwork. That reappraisal of all property, not just residential properties, but every property in this town, will be completed in 2016, at which time that we'll have, most importantly, an accurate inventory of the land records of the city of Detroit, something that the city hasn't had for a long time. And we will have individual new market valuations for every piece of property, from a home to a factory to a commercial storefront. But that's kind of our end game in terms of trying to get our arms around the whole assessment process. It's going to continue through 2016, and it'll be reflected in the assessment roll of 2017. I'd like to just take this opportunity to introduce my partner, Mr. Horn. I am the certifying assessor. I have the level 4 assessor certification and am a licensed real estate appraiser by the state of Michigan. Mr. Horn has got a designation from an International Association of Assessing Officers in mapping. He is phenomenal in terms of putting together these maps, and it's through our joint efforts that we're able to succeed and make progress. But it's only through the partnership with Mr. Horn and his great abilities.
So these are annual decreases in assessment. So these are on top of the 5 to 20% we saw last year.
Correct.
As well. Okay. In terms of getting appraisals, you know, a lot of people are going to think in terms of, you know, comps in real estate, you know, looking at how others sold in the neighborhood. Is that how the process goes here too? Or
Absolutely.
are there other factors you have to consider?
Absolutely. No, the assessment process is all about what's your property worth. And half of that, whatever the property is worth, should be your assessed value. And so to the extent that you receive one of these notices and you see that your assessed value, if you double it, if you feel that that's an unrealistic estimate in terms of what you would be able to receive for your property in the open market, then you should probably come into our office and register an appeal. The appeal process will begin next week. According to ordinance in the city of Detroit, residential property taxpayers, in fact, every taxpayer must come to the assessor's review that begins next week and runs through the 16th of February before they can go to the board of review, which is in March. Commercial industrial taxpayers can come to the board of review. However, state statute says that they don't need to come to the board of review. They can go directly to the Michigan Tax Tribunal.
How are you compensating for foreclosures?
The foreclosures are being considered in terms of what these other properties are selling for, and I have this past year reviewed. I started off with 47,000 transactions that most of which came from the Register of Deeds, others came through by means of property transfer affidavits, and have gone through these. Recognized too is that 10,000 of these transactions are lots moving from the planning department to the land bank, but there was a substantial amount of sales data that I used. I will not use transactions that involve a bank or a mortgage company, whether they're buying it or unloading it, because these properties are not properly exposed to the market, and the reasons for the amount that's being transferred for the property is not necessarily driven by the market.
So if I can translate, they only took the arm's length real estate transactions and used that as the actual sales study for the basis of these appraisals, right?
For the most part, yes, sir.
So the apples to apples is homes that are being sold for, not homes that are being pushed onto the market through foreclosure.
Right, to the extent that the foreclosures are negatively impacting the values of the properties that are not going through foreclosures, that's going to be realized in the selling prices.
But that's not necessarily how banks do it. So I'm curious as to how you think there this is going to affect the ability to get mortgages, which you've talked about publicly multiple times in Detroit.
You know, what's interesting is that 4 or 5 years ago, bank foreclosures were a huge issue. We actually have a relatively small number of bank foreclosures going on in the city today. The vast majority of foreclosures are treasurer foreclosures for property taxes. I can write a book on mortgages, but interestingly, the banks make their decision pretty much the same way Gary does. They look at the houses sold in the neighborhood, they see what the value was, and they use that as a basis for the appraisal. My issue is the appraisals in this town look back 2 or 3 years when they're making the appraisal, and so it becomes very difficult in the neighborhoods like the Indian Villages, the Woodbridges, the Bagleys that are coming back quite quickly. They're looking back too many years, and so it makes it difficult for you to get a realistic mortgage. But I'm going to be with Treasury Secretary Lou on Monday, and we're going to have a long version of this conversation. But actually, this has virtually nothing to do with the mortgage decisions. Is what you're appraised at. What the banks are looking at is, can they sustain an appraisal so that Freddie and Fannie will buy the mortgage that they issue. Any other questions?
Can you go over again how the reductions last year have affected the tax revenue?
So I will. So we had originally anticipated about $110 million in property tax revenues for 2014, 2015. So our fiscal year runs through June 30th, 2015. When we did last year's cuts, John Naglak, the finance director, and the team cut the property tax revenue budget for this year for $102 million. So our budget for 2015 is $102 million in property taxes. We know we're going to collect $115 million in property taxes because the percentage of people who paid went up significantly. I can't tell you exactly what the percentage is, but it was really a remarkable result. We thought we were going to be at 110. We cut the expectation to 102 because of the assessment reduction, and actually we're running above 115. And if you go back to the tape, you'll see 12 months ago, I predicted that would happen, but we budgeted conservatively. And so we were budgeted for 2016. Remember, Kevin Orr left us with a 2-year budget, which I can't change. That budget for 2016 said property tax revenues go down from 102 to $100 million. So we were projected to go down another $2 million in 16. We know we got a current run rate of 115. If it goes down some, we're still going to be well above the 100 we budgeted. If we have the same effect we had this year, it'll be even better. But, I track the revenues in this place with excruciating detail. Every week we look at how they come in, and the property tax revenues have been good news in the city this year.
You projected that you would lose 10 to 15 million, right?
Yeah. So we figured we probably had an average assessment cut last year, about 10%. There's a whole complicated things about taxable value versus assessed value. So we kind of went from thinking it was going to be 110 million to 102. So if you look at the budget for the city of Detroit for 2015, the year we're in, it says 102. I'm telling you when the year's over, it's going to come in at least at 115. And so if you look at the budget for 2016, it says 100. And so if we're running at 115 now, we'll see what happens. But as I say, I'm confident that this will not have a negative impact on the 2-year budget for the city of Detroit.
What about the people who say that 20% isn't enough? It needs to be more than that.
So I think Gary explained that everybody has a right to come in to an assessor's review and to appeal it. And certainly people in the city have learned that process. But you know, everybody, they have that legal right to go and challenge it. And I'm looking to get to the day where people don't stop me and tell me my house is overassessed, which I still hear far too often in this city. Anybody have any other questions? All right, thank you all very much for coming.